guns, ammo, and everything in between. This video, we're going to cover a basic summary of the types of firearms and ammunition that you may need for an SHTF situation. Sierra Sentinel, let's get into it. First and foremost, say this right off the top, this is not an endorsement of any particular product or any manufacturer or any item, and also obey all federal laws and state laws and local laws as they apply to you. People are crazy. People are dangerous. Crazy people are dangerous. Dangerous people are crazy. However you want to phrase it, that is the state of humanity. And currently in our present situation, there is a lot of danger and a lot of crazy circulating around, spreading like wildfire in some places. You may be in a position of your own existence simply by being where you're at, that you are placed into that situation where you are surrounded or you are being threatened. Having firearms is a means to balance the playing field. It is a force multiplier in many cases, and in other situations, having a firearm can be the sole difference between you being a dead victim in a ditch or being a person that is able to get through that situation and live another day. Simply put, you don't know when a crime is going to happen. You don't know when a criminal is going to decide you're going to be their next target. A random act of violence is a random act of violence. The only person that's aware of it is the actual perpetrator that is going to commit the actual crime. You, as the next victim up, are going to be unaware until the very last second. And you may only have seconds where hopefully you're paying attention and you can respond accordingly. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we're in a state of turmoil. Things are not, as they say, going well. It's not to say that every single corner of this country is in total chaos. It's not to say that we are past that brink, but we are definitely at the edge. We're at that precipice when it comes to the day-to-day functions, the social norms and normalcy that we normally would have in society. There are a lot of rules that are being disregarded. There are a lot of rules that are being broken, and there are a lot of people that are getting swept up and caught up and unfortunately being hurt in those situations where it could have been avoided. Having firearms, being able to use a firearm for self-defense, to protect yourself, protect your loved ones, to even be able to be there to protect innocent bystanders in certain situations, there's no negative to that. There is absolutely no negative to that. I don't see a downside to being able to stay alive. I don't see a downside in being able to keep my family alive. I don't see a downside to be able to keep some random stranger, a grandmother and their grandchild, alive by owning firearms. But we're in a situation where increasingly it is poo-pooed upon. It is looked down upon. It is, pointing fingers at shame, putting on the level that the person that owns the firearm for their protection, their defense, is somehow equated to being far worse than the criminal, the perpetrator that is committing the acts of crime and violence that we are getting further and farther surrounded and deeper into. On one aspect of it, the saying, it's better to have a gun and not need it than need a gun and not have it, is 100% accurate. Should things go south and sideways, as I like to say, there won't be time and there may not be any availability to go out, get a firearm, learn how to use it, and practice and be well equipped and well trained to defend yourself. That could be gone very quickly. The supply could be cut off. The ability to get one, regardless of the situation, depending upon where you're at, may be cut off. And if we're in a worst case scenario, the fantasy concept of, the world has collapsed and it's a veritable wasteland and people are just scrounging and getting by. People have this idea that, then they'll just find guns then. Not going to happen, because the realistic aspect is if someone has a firearm and they kill someone else who has a firearm, they're taking that other firearm. You're not finding guns on the street, because if you come across a dead body with a firearm, 10 to 1 says they were just killed or died recently within that area, and the person that killed them is still nearby, and they may be baiting you, waiting for you to go after the firearm before they put one through you and peel your wig off. Under today's circumstances, you can go to a shooting range, you can practice. The sound of gunfire going off in a controlled environment doesn't bring attention, doesn't blink an eye. Even in some places, unfortunately, it's sad to say that there are some cities where the sound of gunfire going off also doesn't, draw attention or blink an eye because it's going on all the time. But in a SHTF situation, a post-apocalyptic, I am legend type of thing, if you're shooting off rounds to practice, you're going to draw attention because there are going to be people that say someone has a firearm, let's see what else they have. And if you are not prepared to defend yourself because you're not that good with the firearm, or worse, you don't have a lot of ammo, you're going to be in a sad situation. So with that being said, this is just ballparking. It's not an exact. Yes, there are plenty of calculations that you can do that you can get a good comparison on, but you can look at it in two aspects. If you're going to go through the process of getting a firearm for self-defense, whether it be a handgun or a long gun, whatever you're choosing, right now you have to consider there's pretty much going to be two types of ammunition you're looking at. The less expensive ammo that you use to practice on a regular basis, weekly and monthly, while you own that firearm to get more proficient at it, and then the ammunition that you're going to use for the purpose of self-defense. Yes, you can practice with the self-defense ammo, but when you're stacking up a box of 50 for $15 versus a box of 20 self-defense ammo for $40, right now you're not going to be using as much of that self-defense ammo, so you're going to be using the practice ammo. Now, take note, and I've said this in other videos, all ammunition is lethal. It does not matter whether it's lead-tipped round nose, whether it's full metal jacket, whether it's hollow point, whether it's 22, whether it's 45 caliber, it doesn't matter. All ammunition is lethal. All ammunition can injure and kill. It's just simply a matter of the expense and the accounting of what you're paying for and what you're using it for. If I'm practicing and I intend to shoot 200 to 300 rounds, my budget does not allow me to shoot 200 to 300 rounds of self-defense hollow point. My budget allows me to shoot 200 to 300 rounds of full metal jacket without a problem. So depending upon the type caliber that you get, cost is a factor. Depending upon how many firearms you have, again, cost is a factor. But effectively speaking, if you're going to stock up and store ammo for the firearms that you have, whether it be 1 or 100, you need to look at what your common denominators are. How many firearms do you have that use the same type of ammunition? You can get a better idea of what you want to do. You can break it down into two basic groups. You can either store ammunition based strictly upon the caliber, or you can store ammunition based upon the number of firearms. So if, say for example, you have two firearms that fire the same type of ammo, you can say, well, I want to have 500 rounds of ammo per firearm. Even though they use the same type, I just want to have 500 per firearm. You may decide one gun is going to be the gun that you practice with on a regular basis, keeping those fundamentals sharp, and the other gun is the gun that you're going to use on your self-defense situation where it's still functional, you still use it for practice, but not as often, and you sort of keep it on that, standby basis ready to go. Other aspect is you can simply look at trying to do a round count overall. So if you say, well, I want to make sure that of all these multiple calibers that I have a minimum of 1,000 rounds in each caliber, because you might have 9mm, 38 special, 45, 40, whatever it is, and you want to have a minimum number per caliber, even if you only have one gun in each of those calibers. Same thing if you've got rifles, you may want to have a minimum number. In most situations though, the number of rounds you have for practice, the number of inexpensive rounds that you're using, that is simply how much you use. That you're not looking to specifically store up for later. That's what you're going to be practicing with now, so you get better, so you're more proficient, and you use less ammo later on. The self-defense ammo is what you hopefully won't have to use, but that's what you carry on you when you do carry your firearm for self-defense, whether it be on a day-to-day basis presently or in the near future. That's the ammo that's going to cost you a bit more. That's the ammo that, yes, use it occasionally when you're practicing to make sure that your firearm feeds that ammo correctly into the gun and operates it without any problems. This way, You don't want to run into a situation where you bought self-defense ammo, you never fired it in that gun, and finding out that it jams after the second or third round. That's not something in a critical situation that you want to discover then. You need to know that now so you can understand what you need to do, what ammo you need to change out, or how you need to work that malfunction. So having, as an example, 500 rounds full metal jacket that you might take to the range, you might only use 100 rounds that day. You might come back a week later, use another 100 rounds. When you do that, buy an extra box, buy an extra 2 boxes, so this way you keep a regular balance. Your self-defense ammo, you might have 200, 300 rounds. You might think in terms of, if let's say it's a semi-auto and the magazine holds 10 rounds, how many magazines do you have? Having just 1 or 2 magazines, that's not sufficient. 5, honestly, is the minimum for magazines. Irregardless of how many rounds the magazine holds, 5 round minimum is what you should have for the number of magazines per handgun. Even if the handguns use the same type of magazines, 5 round minimum per handgun. Then you take into account how many rounds that's going to be. So if it's, let's say, 10 rounds in the magazine, 50 rounds. So you need minimum 50 rounds just to load those magazines for that one handgun once. If you're in an SHTF situation and all the gun stores have been looted and it's only the ammo that you have left, that 50 rounds is not really going to last you very long under almost any condition, barring complete isolation. So you want to be able to, again, keeping the math simple, reload those 5 magazines with a total of 50 rounds 10 times. 500 rounds. Now, yes, self-defense ammo is a bit pricier, so it may not be something that you can do in a one-shot deal. It may take you 2 weeks, it may take you 2 months, but you buy a little each time you go to the range, or even if you have, a little bit extra on a paycheck, you buy a little bit more and you start stacking it up and you start storing it, because again, that's the ammo that you're going to rely on in self-defense. So even if you're not carrying a firearm with you, you have that ammo on hand ready to go. Versus the ammo that you might use for practice, you're going to be going through that a lot more often. Hopefully you'll be going through that on a regular enough basis that you've gotten very good and very proficient at using that firearm, and then when you do use your firearm in a self-defense situation, things should go hopefully your way. So overall, again, it's not a hard, set, fast rule. There are plenty of people that have their own ideas about how much ammo you should have, in what caliber, the number of magazines, the number of firearms, things like that. I'm just giving you my basic simple assessment, especially if you are new to the firearm area. If you decide that you're going to get a semi-auto handgun, fine. What's the maximum capacity that you're allowed to, by your state laws, to have in that magazine? And then you look at that and say, well, okay, I need to be able to at least get 5 magazines at minimum. It doesn't necessarily mean you're walking around with all 5, but 5 magazines at minimum to have. And then how many rounds does it going to take in self-defense box ammo to buy to reload those magazines in those situations that you need to? And then just buy your other ammo that you're going to be practicing with when you go to the range on a regular basis. So no matter what, you're going to be dropping some dimes to get this done. Whether you can do it all at once or you're doing it piecemeal at a time, it's still something that you need to build up on. And as I said before, it's better to do this now, currently, where we're at in our situation, because who knows, 2023, 2024, things can change, rules can change, or you could wake up one morning and we're in a world without rules, and if that's the case, you only have what you have. And I would not hold my breath under any condition thinking that, well, I'll just go out and find a firearm out on the street, or I'll come across one somewhere, because that's a very dangerous situation to put yourself in, going out unarmed, looking for arms to protect yourself with, because you're an automatic beacon, a walking target, a victim number 1 next up on the plate. That's something that you want to avoid at all costs. So it's just something to think about when it comes to the self-defense aspect of it. You have a right to defend yourself, and having a firearm is still one of the best things that you could have to balance the scales when it comes to your self-defense and protecting other people. Anyway, that's it for now. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Also, like, share, and subscribe.